Welcome back to another deep dive. We have a really fascinating stack of documents to get through today.
We really do.
Yeah, we're covering everything from legal strategy to the chaotic logistics of one of America's most famous neighborhoods. But before we jump into the complex world of legal logistics, we have a quick message from our sponsor. This deep dive is made possible by 337 Media.
They are the team behind some of the most successful brands in Acadiana.
Exactly. Whether it is building beautiful, high-converting websites or, mastering the dark arts of local SEO, 337 Media is the engine you want under the hood of your business.
Oh, definitely.
We always say support the companies that support this show, so please find our link in the description and give them a visit.
Absolutely. Digital presence is just everything right now.
It is. Okay, so let's unpack this. Today, we're looking at a profession that I think most people only really know from movies. You know the scene.
Oh, yeah, the disguise.
Right. A guy in a delivery uniform or a fake mustache hands an envelope to a confused villain and says, "You've been served."
And then they usually just run away.
Yeah, they sprint off. But today, we are peeling back the curtain on the reality of process serving. We're analyzing a stack of materials from Lafayette Process Servers, LLC, specifically focusing on their major expansion into the New Orleans market.
Right.
And here is where it gets really interesting for you as a listener. They have just officially joined the French Quarter Business Association, or the FQBA.
Which, at first glance sounds like a standard business move.
Hmm.
But when you look at the context of the source material we have, it's actually a very specific tactical decision.
That is the exact word that kept jumping out at me while reading this. Tactical.
Yeah.
This isn't just delivering mail. We're talking about tactical litigation support. We're talking about GPS verification, body cams, and navigating what might honestly be the most logistically hostile environment in the South, the Vieux Carré.
It's a really great case study in how logistics meets the law.
Mm.
Because you can have the best lawyers in the world, but if that piece of paper doesn't get into the right hands, the lawsuit it doesn't exist.
Exactly. So our mission today is to analyze this expansion. We are going to look at why a process server even needs to join a business association in the French Quarter.
Right.
We'll look at the high-tech tools they use to prove they actually did the job and this whole concept of the Metairie pipeline.
It really changes how you look at the legal system. It's less about guys in wigs and more about guys in cars with dash cams.
So true. Let's dive into the landscape first. The headline news here is that Lafayette Process Servers, LLC has joined the FQBA. My first thought was, okay, maybe they just want to network.
Right, go to some mixers.
Yeah, maybe get some discounts on beignets. But looking deeper into the documents, the sources suggest something much more serious. So why does a process server need to be in the French Quarter Business Association?
It really comes down to two things, legitimacy and access. And what's fascinating here is the distinction the sources make between a verified local specialist and what they call national paper hangers.
Paper hangers!
Yeah.
I love that term so much. It sounds so dismissive.
It is dismissive, and honestly for good reason. In this industry, a national paper hanger is usually just a massive aggregator company.
Okay.
They get an order from a huge law firm in New York or Chicago, and they just farm it out to the lowest bidder in the local area. Usually a gig worker who has absolutely no idea what they're doing.
So you basically have someone treating a legal subpoena like an Uber Eats delivery.
Exactly. And in a sprawling suburb with wide driveways, that might actually work.
Yeah.
But we are talking about the French Quarter, the Vieux Carré.
Right.
If you send a gig worker into that specific environment without local knowledge, they are going to fail.
The terrain is incredibly hostile. I mean, I love the quarter, but driving there, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
The sources highlight narrow corridors, pedestrian zones, and high-security residential complexes.
Right. Think about the architecture of that neighborhood. You have these beautiful 18th century buildings with heavy iron gates that are locked 24/7.
Yeah.
A paper hanger walks up, finds a locked gate, maybe tapes the paper to the outside brick, and leaves. That is bad service. That gets thrown out of court immediately.
Whereas a local specialist, someone who is actually part of the FQBA, they probably know the access code.
Or they know the property manager personally. Or they know that the actual entrance isn't the front door at all. It's down an alleyway on the side.
That makes a lot of sense.
That membership in the FQBA signifies to the attorneys in New Orleans that they aren't just visiting. It says, we understand the terrain.
And speaking of terrain, we have to talk about the parking situation. The source material has this pro point section that really stuck out to me. It explicitly discusses the risk of tow zones and limited parking.
It seems like such a mundane detail, but in process serving, Your vehicle is your entire lifeline.
The text mentions that a national provider might circle for hours just looking for a legal spot. Or worse, they park illegally.
And that is the ultimate trap. You're in a huge rush. You have a priority rush serve that needs to happen right now. You park in a loading zone on Royal Street without a permit.
Oh boy.
You run inside for 5 minutes to serve the papers, you come back out, and your car is just gone.
Towed straight to the impound lot.
Exactly. And now your entire timeline is destroyed. You're not serving anyone else that day. But a local tactical team, and that is the specific language they use in the documents, tactical.
Right.
They know the loading zones. They know the strict traffic patterns.
Yeah.
They know exactly how to bypass those towed vehicle zones to ensure that a 24-hour rush serve actually happens in 24 hours.
It's amazing how much of this highly legal job is just knowing where to put your car so you don't get towed by the city of New Orleans.
It really is. And it goes way beyond just parking. The sources also mention navigating festivals and peak traffic.
Oh, true. New Orleans is basically one giant rolling festival calendar.
Right.
If it's not Mardi Gras, it's Jazz Fest or French Quarter Fest or just some random Tuesday second line parade.
Exactly. If you're trying to serve legal papers during Mardi Gras, standard GPS is not going to help you at all.
Right. Apple Maps is going to fail you.
Google Maps doesn't always know that a parade route just barricaded St. Charles Avenue.
So you need real-time navigation and, local intuition.
You need to know which streets are actively blocked and which alleyways are still open. That is the clarity this FQBA membership signals to their clients. It's a promise that the chaos of the quarter won't stop the legal process.
So they've got the local knowledge down, they can get to the physical door, but getting to the door is only half the battle, right? Because once you hand over the papers, you have to prove to a judge you actually did it.
And this is where we transition from logistics straight into the courtroom. This is the high-stakes part of the whole operation.
Let's talk about the motion to quash. The sources mention this several times as a major threat. What exactly does that mean in this context?
A motion to quash is essentially a legal maneuver where the defendant, the person being sued, claims that the service of process was improper. They go to the judge and say, I never got those papers. Or they say, they were left at the wrong house. Or that wasn't me who answered the door.
And if the judge believes them, what happens?
The whole case stalls,
Mm-hmm.
or it gets thrown out entirely.
Yes.
It can cause massive, expensive delays in the Orleans Parish Civil District Court, the CDC, or over in the 24th JDC in Gretna.
Wow.
It is a massive headache for attorneys because it completely resets the clock on their case.
So it basically becomes a he said, she said situation. The server says, I delivered it, and the defendant just flat out says, no, you didn't.
Traditionally, yes. The server would sign a sworn affidavit, and the judge would have to weigh that against the defendant's word. But this is where the technology Lafayette Process Servers is using changes the game entirely.
Because they aren't just relying on their word anymore.
Exactly. They are using body cam documentation.
HD video proof, like actual police body cams.
Very similar concept, yes. Imagine the difference that makes in a courtroom. The defendant stands up and claims they weren't served. The attorney simply plays the HD video footage from the server's body cam.
Unarguable.
It shows the server walking up, the defendant opening the door, the actual exchange of documents, and a clear shot of the face of the individual.
That is just game over for the motion to quash.
It really is. It provides what the sources call ironclad proof. It completely eliminates the ambiguity. And they combine this video evidence with GPS verification.
Right, I saw that in the documents. GPS verified accuracy.
Every single attempt is logged with precise coordinates. So not only do you have the video of the event happening, you have digital metadata proving exactly where and when the server was standing at that exact moment.
It really shifts the profession from just being a courier service to being almost like a forensic data collector.
That's a great way to put it. It's highly evidentiary. In a high-stakes lawsuit, the delivery of the papers is the foundation of the entire case. If that foundation cracks, the whole thing falls down. This technology reinforces that foundation.
It's fascinating how much tech is packed into what used to be just a guy with a clipboard knocking on a door.
It's a completely necessary adaptation. We are operating in a low-trust environment right now. Attorneys anticipate that defendants will lie about receiving papers, so the process server has to armor themselves with data.
So we've got the local knowledge of the French Quarter, and we've got the high-tech proof. But looking at the geographic map, the French Quarter is just one part of the puzzle here.
Right.
The sources talk a lot about their strategic Metairie hub.
Yes, located at 1 Galleria BLVD, Suite 1900.
Why is that specific location so important? If all the action is downtown in New Orleans, why not just have the office downtown?
Well, you have to think about the geography of the greater New Orleans area. The sources describe a Metairie-Denola pipeline, but it's really more of a hub-and-spoke model.
Okay, let's unpack that for everyone.
Metairie is very centrally located. If you are based at one Galleria BLVE, you have immediate direct access to the I-10 corridor.
Okay.
You can shoot east into downtown New Orleans to hit the Orleans CDC or the French Quarter very quickly, but you can also shoot west to the airport or south to cross the bridge over to the West Bank.
The West Bank. That's where the 24th Judicial District Court is, right? In Gretna.
Yeah, correct. The source lists their total jurisdiction coverage. It includes Orleans Parish, Jefferson Parish, which covers Metairie, Kenner, and Gretna.
Right.
And then it stretches out to St. Tammany and St. Bernard parishes.
Wow, that's a wide net.
It is. If their office was stuck deep inside the French Quarter, getting out to Kenner or St. Tammany would be a logistical nightmare during rush hour. You'd be trapped in tourist traffic and one-way streets before you even got to the highway.
That makes perfect sense. By being in Metairie, they can pivot in any direction quickly.
Exactly. It allows them to offer that rush availability the sources highlight. They talk about same-day and 24-hour priority rush services specifically for the Central Business District.
And you just can't guarantee that speed if you aren't positioned near the major arteries like I-10.
Precisely. If a lawyer in Gretna calls at 4 p.m. needing a critical paper served in Slidell, being at one Galleria makes that feasible. Being on Bourbon Street makes it essentially impossible.
Now, I want to pivot a bit because we've talked mostly about serving papers for lawsuits, standard litigation. But looking at the full list of services in these documents, they do a lot more than just that. The source material lists things like eviction support and registered agent services.
It really paints a broader picture of the entire business model. It's not just litigation. It's property and corporate management support, too.
The eviction support really caught my eye. They explicitly reference a landlord's guide to eviction. Why do you need a specialized tactical server for that? Can't a landlord just tape a notice to the door and call it a day?
Absolutely not, especially if they want the tenant to actually leave legally. Evictions are incredibly procedure-heavy in Louisiana. If a landlord misses a single step, or if the notice isn't served strictly according to the legal code, the judge will throw the whole eviction out.
And then the tenant just stays.
The tenant stays, and the landlord has to start the entire eviction process over from day one. That creates a massive delay that costs the property owner months of lost rent.
So having a professional process server handle those initial eviction notices is a way for property managers to ensure they aren't losing money due to some minor technicality.
Exactly, is risk mitigation.
And what about the registered agent service? That sounds a bit more corporate, maybe less tactical?
That is primarily for out-of-state entities. If a company based in Texas or California wants to legally do business in Louisiana, the state requires them to have a physical address here to receive legal mail. You can't just use a standard P.O. box.
So Lafayette Process Servers acts as that required physical presence.
Right. Their office at one Galleria becomes the official state address for that out-of-state company. If the company gets sued, the legal papers go directly there. It keeps the business fully compliant with the Louisiana Secretary of State.
Got it. Now, there's one section in the sources that is very bold, very specific, and honestly a little intense. It's the disclaimer section.
Yes, this is crucial to understand.
The text explicitly says, Lafayette Process Servers, LLC are not law enforcement. And then it says, we are not attorneys.
This is a vital distinction to make. In the world of tactical services, the lines can get really blurry in the general public's mind. People see body cams, they see the phrase investigative work, maybe they even see a guy wearing a tactical vest if he's working in a particularly rough neighborhood. And they naturally might think these guys are private detectives or undercover cops.
Right. But they definitely aren't.
No, they are strictly court-appointed officers. Their authority comes entirely from the Louisiana Code of Civil Procedure, specifically Article 1293.
Article 1293.
Yes, that article gives them the legal power to deliver documents. But that is it. They cannot arrest anyone. They cannot detain anyone against their will.
And they can't give legal advice.
That's the really big one. Imagine you just handed someone a lawsuit that absolutely ruins their day. The very first thing they ask you is, what do I do now?
Right.
The process server cannot answer that question under any circumstances. If they do, they are practicing law without a license.
That's a very important boundary. They have to remain entirely neutral messengers.
Exactly. It protects the integrity of the whole legal process. If a server starts acting like a cop or a lawyer, The entire service could be deemed invalid by the judge.
And there's a specific note about skip tracing, too. Now, skip tracing sounds like spy stuff to me, or like bounty hunter work.
Skip tracing is basically the art of finding someone who has skipped town or is purposely hard to locate. But you have to notice the nuance in the source text regarding this.
Yeah, let me look. It says, any skip tracing or investigative work discussed is performed strictly in connection with a process service under court appointment.
Right. They aren't just private investigators for hire for the general public.
Okay.
You can't hire them to see if your spouse is cheating on you. You can't hire them to track down an old high school friend just because you're curious where they live now.
But you can if you are suing that old high school friend.
Exactly. The location work they do is tied exclusively to the mandate of the court to serve process. It's a specific tool to fulfill their court-appointed duty, not a standalone service for public curiosity.
That is a very fine line, but I totally see why it's so legally important. It keeps them strictly in their lane.
And being in their line is exactly what makes them so effective. By focusing purely on the logistics and execution of legal delivery, they become absolute experts at it. They aren't distracted by trying to be generic private investigators or security guards.
So let's zoom out a bit here as we wrap up. We've looked at the FQBA membership, the HD body cams, the Metairie hub at One Galleria, and these strict legal boundaries.
Yeah.
What does this all tell you about the current state of the legal system in New Orleans right now?
I think it tells us that the legal system is becoming increasingly data-driven and highly adversarial.
How so?
Well, just look at the heavy reliance on body cams we discussed. It strongly suggests that trust is at an absolute all-time low.
Right.
Attorneys just anticipate that defendants will lie. They anticipate these motions to quash as standard practice, so they have to armor themselves with data. They need video, GPS coordinates, timestamps.
It's almost like an arms race. The defendants get better at dodging the serve, so the servers get better tracking technology to tag them.
Precisely. And the expansion into the French Quarter Business Association shows that having a local presence is becoming a premium asset. In a globalized world where you can theoretically hire a service through an app, there is still just no substitute for someone who knows which hidden alleyway to take behind Bourbon Street.
It's that human element. The guy who knows the local doorman or knows the traffic cop on the corner or knows that a specific loading zone is only active until 11 a.m. You just can't automate that kind of knowledge.
You really can't. You can support it with GPS, sure, but you cannot replace the local knowledge. That is the tactical advantage they're selling here. It's a hybrid model. Boots on the ground, supported by eyes in the sky.
It really is a fascinating intersection of old and new. You have the ancient narrow streets of the Vieux Carré, literally some of the oldest infrastructure in the whole country, meeting the absolute newest technology in HD video and satellite tracking.
And all of it is being orchestrated from a modern office tower over in Metairie. It's just a perfect snapshot of how complex business operates today.
So, to quickly recap for you listening, Lafayette Process Servers LLC has expanded heavily into the New Orleans market. They are anchoring themselves with a strategic hub at One Galleria Bielvidi in Metairie for highway access.
Right.
They've joined the French Quarter Business Association not just to shake hands, but to signal clearly that they can navigate the logistical nightmare of the quarter, avoiding tow zones and hitting tight delivery windows.
And they are backing up that physical capability with undeniable digital proof. Body cams and GPS coordinates to stop those motions to quash dead in their tracks in both the Orleans CDC and the 24th JDC.
While also offering a full suite of supportive services from evictions to registered agents, and doing it all while staying strictly within their legal lane. They are not cops, they are not lawyers, they are court-appointed professionals.
It's an incredibly robust operation. It really shows that even the most traditional old-school parts of the law are being rapidly modernized.
It's amazing to think about. We usually just focus on the famous lawyers arguing the big case, or the judge making the final ruling. But none of that happens. Literally, the case cannot legally start until someone physically hands a piece of paper to another human being.
It is the spark that ignites the entire legal engine. Without that physical spark, the engine just sits cold.
And as we've learned today, making that spark happen in New Orleans takes a lot more than just a clipboard. It takes a tactical team.
It definitely does.
So here is a provocative thought to leave you with today. We talked a lot about how technology like body cams and GPS coordinates has turned the simple physical act of handing someone a piece of paper into a high-tech data operation.
Right.
If the basic delivery phase is this high-tech and this heavily scrutinized, What does that say about the rest of our legal system?
That is the big question.
Are we moving toward a world where every single interaction in a lawsuit, from the initial handshake to the final settlement, is recorded, tracked, and databased?
It seems like it.
And if so, does that make justice more blind, or does it just make it more digital? Are we completely replacing honor with data because we've lost the ability to simply trust a sworn oath?
That is something to really think deeply about.
Something for you to mull over as you go about your day. Thank you all for listening to this deep dive into the tactical world of process serving, and a big thank you to our expert for breaking down all these complex legal nuances for us.
It was my absolute pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next one. Stay curious.